All right, how to pick the best marriage coach, program, or therapist. Why people stay together for the kids, and it's not what you think. Why men are not leading in their home. I'm Cass.
I'm Kathryn.
Not so obvious ways to get the sex back.
So when you dated your husband in the beginning, did you ever answer the door with your hair all crazy? We're MorrowMarriage.
Let's flip divorce statistics with the new marriage. This came up because we were talking a few episodes back about, well, you didn't have to work with us, but there's a good chance we won't hang out with you as a couple. We did say we could do it individually, just because of the importance of the toxicity or the negativity with a lot of couples that are out there when you're trying to move forward. And this really got us thinking, like, there's got to be a lot of value for you trying to figure out how to find the right support. Hey, babe. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to first start this off with, it's pretty straightforward. First and foremost, you should talk to people and listen for how it sounds like they're moving forward. What I mean by that is simple. People will often present a lot of success because they don't want to look like things aren't working. And so when
we did that
a lot. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. And when you're looking for that, I don't think, unless you have like a super radar like Kathryn here, I don't think you're going to be able to just automatically know, but you also shouldn't automatically trust somebody who says their marriage is great. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, since you're like the super radar when it comes to having good vibes about people, like, can you give any insight? I know that a lot of it's just natural intuition, you know. Do you have anything?
I think that sometimes one of the indicators that things might not be real or true is that they go over the top, like we did.
Yeah.
So if they're going over the top to pretend, you won't know if they're pretending, but if it seems like it's over the top and it's too good to be true, then it might be. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be too good to be true all the time. There are people that have really amazing marriages, and we have found those. We're one of those couples, by the way, but we have found those couples because we looked for them. We looked for people to strive after and to model ourselves after. And so those people are out there. And so when I say over the top, we do lots of jokes and lots of flirting and all that. And that's real, but there's just a difference between authentic flirting and banter and, forced. And so I think if you watch for forced communication, I think there's also things like if you watch for little nuances, negative body language and little, I would say facial expressions. Like if you watch a couple speak and they're not speaking to each other, if they're speaking to you, if you watch the body language of the other person, mm-hmm. You could probably even look at some of our, you can always tell when I'm in a bad mood. It doesn't necessarily mean that like anything is wrong with us, but if you look at some of our older content, I was really sick at the end of 2022. Was it 2022?
Yes.
Middle of 2022 until there's still something wrong with me. We don't know. But there were some times that we would get on and I did not want to do a live. And people would comment on how it looked like it wasn't enjoying what my husband was saying. So that's different. You can't just look at, one bad day that somebody's having because somebody can have a bad day. We weren't even having a bad day. I was just having a bad day.
Right.
But now I'm going off on a tangent. But I think if you look at the body language in general that people are displaying, so if he's talking, if I'm rolling my eyes or turning my body away. Let
me use a really good example. So I keep looking at Kathryn. She keeps looking at me. And there's some people, especially on YouTube, who are upset about it. And I'm getting nasty DMs on some.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we should be looking at the camera. And I get what you're saying. But here's the thing. That's a sign that things are like, we care. We want to look at each other.
That makes me laugh. Do your ears not work? Because this is for a podcast, actually. It makes me laugh.
It's okay. I get it. I can understand because it's on YouTube and it's a video platform. So I can empathize. I made one comment like we're doing our best to look at the camera a little more, but things like that show the difference. Now I'm
going to look at you even more now. Who wouldn't?
So, but there is something that's valuable, whether or not it's real, you can trust them or not. I want you guys to think about it like this. If they have what you want, right? It doesn't mean that that's the person that you're going to necessarily get support from, right? Maybe you can't trust it, but you can still use that as a resource for you, Well, you could tell they were disagreeing, but look, she seemed to handle that respect a little bit differently, or he seemed to be, full of gratitude, even though there's a disagreement, right? We had a disagreement not too long ago. We talked about early on in the podcast, which was, the first time we saw some friends after that big fight we had years, like in the beginning, our first 6 months of our marriage. And you said a comment like, we ruined the birthday party. And I was like, yes, we ruined the birthday party.
And I was like, no, we didn't. You did.
But you see, it didn't change anything.
No, we were fine. We had like a little like blip in the
15 seconds and then move on, or like it's so. Yeah. Think like that matters. Now, when you start thinking about therapy, I think you just have to ask yourself, if you're leaving and you're more angry, how many times do we leave therapy more upset, causing more problems? Or if you look at a therapist who's telling you you should leave. This happens almost all the time when I have somebody that goes to a therapist. Somebody's being told to leave. That's not a proactive solution, right? Now, granted, there are times when that happens, but why is it happening so commonly with people that we speak to? So I think you need to be really careful with therapists.
Yes, you have to find the right fit. And I'm sure you're going to go somewhere after. Again, this is totally unscripted, so I never know where his brain is going to go. But you have to be careful no matter who you hire, whether it's a mentor, a coach, a therapist, an online course, online course. You have to be careful no matter what. But when it comes to therapy, therapists are seen in a very high regard, very high esteem, and they deserve it. They've gone through a lot of education, they've learned a lot, but that doesn't mean that they know everything, and it doesn't mean that they can understand your situation. So it has to be the right fit. I don't know how many therapists. Mm-hmm. I don't think I saw, well, I guess I saw a couple of therapists before I met you, but most of the therapy that I've been in has been,
you're welcome.
It was the first 6 years of our marriage. And I saw a lot of them, and some of them were a good fit and some of them weren't. Some of them helped me and some of them just tried to get me to leave. And obviously I didn't listen to them. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really, really important to understand that I'm not saying you shouldn't do therapy, but you're probably trying to choose a therapist or go choose therapy as your option because that's what people tell you to do. And so it becomes really confusing if it's not aligning with, especially if you've heard good referrals. This one helped me and so on and so forth. So it still has to really resonate with you. Like she said, they have to be able to understand what you're feeling and go through and not just go through the system that they were created or that they're using, that was created for school. Okay. Right.
And if I can just say, now I might have lost my train of thought here. Go ahead. You keep
going. Okay. Now, if you come back, you think of it, come back.
Oh, I remember.
Okay,
yes.
Go.
So what I was going to say was, therapy, specifically with couples, when you're thinking about going to therapy can be really good as a couple. It can be, but again, find the right match. But therapy can also be really good individual. So if you're doing individual therapy, remember you're finding it fit for you. If you're doing couples therapy, it has to be a fit for both of you, mm-hmm. which makes it more difficult to find that right fit. Oftentimes when you go to therapy as a couple, it's a different ballgame because one person usually wants to go and the other person doesn't, which we've experienced, and mm-hmm. we experience it all the time with the people we work with. So just remember that whether it's you alone that's going to go do something, because maybe you have to go to therapy because you have to deal with some trauma. That doesn't mean that your partner has to go with you for that. But maybe you're going to therapy or coaching or whatever because you have communication issues together. Well, then you have to find a fit for the both of you that works for both of you.
Yeah, and surrounded by your background, your programming, your traumas, your whatever, right? Now, next thing let's talk about is courses, coaches, and programs. And by the way, I think that you should look at this for anything that you're looking for. With a book, you won't necessarily know. There's not a lot of information there. But with a course or a program, typically you're going to get on a call. We like to do a lot of our calls, and so you're going to have an opportunity to ask the right questions. And I think these are questions that people just don't, I don't know why, but don't think of it. Like, let's say you go to a personal trainer, you do appreciate if they're in good shape, right? And so that's the first question you should ask is, did this coach, course, author, or whatever, did they save their marriage? Do they have the example of a marriage that you want? And I'm not saying that, it's never happened. We're the first ones, but it's not as many as you think that are giving these programs or teaching these courses online.
So there's two different things there. Number one, do they have a healthy marriage? Number
mm-hmm.
two, did they go through the hurdles that you're facing right now? So
thank you.
Two sides to that coin.
She translates for me sometimes. So yeah, and I think it's important. Now, that being said, I don't want that to skew you. Some of my favorite courses and my favorite books, the authors, they didn't save their marriage, but they have incredible lessons to teach.
Still a lot of insight.
Still a lot of valuable lessons. So I'm not saying that's a deciding factor, but I think it should be important to note and then pick up what you're doing. Because here's the thing. Let's say you did choose to use, I'm not going to list the books because I don't want to put them down right now, but let's say you pick this one book up and you know that they didn't save their marriage. And in fact, the author will tell you that in the book. And then, but you can actually think about how he's applying it to the next steps, what he wants to do to save his own marriage. And even though he's talking about it, keeping his new relationship going forward, will that work? Does it make sense? Right. And you could still get some value out of that.
And also think about if you're speaking with someone who, yes, you can get insight and you can get value from someone that either didn't save their marriage or maybe they didn't go through what you're going through or what you went through, but look at their core values. So when you're working with someone who didn't save their marriage, do they still highly value marriage? If, God forbid, if anything would have happened to us, we still would highly value marriage. So if you work with someone, you don't need to look down on them because they haven't been through it. You don't need to look down on them because their marriage fell apart. But do they still hold that core value that marriage is so important? Because as you know, sometimes you work incredibly hard to save your marriage and you can't pull the other person along. We can help you do that for sure, but it happens where both people just...
There could be longer durations, challenging periods.
Absolutely. So just look at the core values of the person. They teach good things. There's valuable insight. There are valuable lessons. Do they have the core value that you want to be using these lessons and using these strategies to save your marriage? Or do they think that marriage is disposable because they've been married 7 times? What is the core value?
Yeah, exactly. And there's something else. This is really cool. So I'm going to go back to when I used to think this was a good test for when I was dating, right? If you're watching,
you dated before me?
Well, I did this just with you.
Yeah,
If I want to know if she's loyal, just watch a movie where there's affairs and how does she respond, right? So you can test those core values in an interview process. They're interviewing you, sure, that's what they tell you, but really you're interviewing them, right? And so you can test the principles, right? I'm not saying you're going to try to get them to give you the answers, solutions, but how are they going to answer? If you're explaining your situation and they use the body language she was talking about, you use the tonality that are they saying the right message about saving the marriage, or are they just trying to tell you so that you think you can save your marriage? And I think that's going to be friends. That's going to be coaches. I had this one coach who told the guy on the call, your wife's a fucking bitch. And after that, I quit the program. I'd already gone through the course material, but never went on another coaching call with him again. Because no matter what, you don't get to say that, right? And so pay attention, look for the cues as to the kind of person they are, because it might not be about marriage, but it might be about how they speak to you. The way they speak to you, are they defensive? Because then they're not going to teach you how to stop being defensive. And this is very common when you get on, say, a call with somebody or their team about the program. You have anything you want to add there?
That was good.
Okay. The last thing that I would say is really straightforward. Does it feel right? And this one, maybe it's your gut, maybe it's your intuition. Bear with me, because I took a lot of courses and read a lot of books and got super hyped and everything was going to be the answer. Okay. You saw an ad for the first course you took and you were like, oh, that's the one. And you still resonate. It was such a powerful message that I don't want to ever downplay. If you're resonating with somebody, their story, for example, how much of their story are they giving you is important to note, but how much do you resonate with their story? That will be a massive, because otherwise you're just like me. You're desperate looking for the solution and you're just kind of grasping at straws instead of actually being able to look at some of these other things that we talked about. That'd be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust. I think you can just say that. You said, trust your gut or your intuition. I think that is very true, because when you so he mentioned that you're going to be likely getting on calls. So when you go to a therapist, you look online, you look at their credentials. It probably won't tell a lot about their story, but it'll tell you about their history and why they do what they do, maybe, and what they do, what they specialize in. When you do a program or a course, or you work with a coach, it's usually there's a lot more. You've seen Facebook ads. There's a phone call, like a screening call, like he said, an interview. And so when you're having that conversation, how does it feel? Are you getting along with the person? And it might not be the coach that you're speaking to, but anybody that's on the phone with you is a direct representation of the coach. These coaches do a really good job us included, we do the same thing. The people that you're speaking to are a direct representation of us. And so when you get on one of these calls for these programs, make sure that are they listening to your story? Are they evaluating if they think they can help you? These people should have a really high ethical standard, because if they hear your story and they think they can't help you, they should tell you that. You don't want to be wasting money and throwing money out the window on a program that actually will not and cannot help you. So I guess that was a different point I just made. But
no, but
sometimes
it's valuable, and it spins me to sort of the last thing I want to say before we get off here, and that is that guys, business is business is business. So it's all sales. So the splash page you see about the book is designed to make you want it, right? Courses do that with trailers and testimonials. Same with coaching programs. And a lot of this, of course, we have to do too. We're running a business. What's the call like? Our team, like you were sort of just hinting at, they have to believe in our 30-year mission to disrupt divorce. They have to. If they don't believe it, I don't care if it's just somebody who's trying to just set appointments, because you'll text a website, for example, and so they're like, hey, can we look at time that's work? That guy still has to care about the mission, the purpose, right? And so when you're on these calls, are they actually trying to understand you, or are they spinning it back to how their program can help? Are they being empathetic, or are they looking, whoa, is that how you speak to your spouse? Like, are they actually figuring it out? Because even though we have sometimes, so I do a second call after I confirm that you're a good fit for the program. But my front guy, my right-hand guy, Martin, at the time of this call, Martin, he has to be able to understand who you are and pull out things like, wait a minute, are you being that defensive with your wife? Which means he understands your situation so that we know we can already start to help you versus just selling you. Okay?
Yeah, good point.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We're going to see you next time for episode 26 already. Holy. All right. See you guys.